Critical Blast, where pop culture gets blasted.
And good evening, everybody. Welcome again to another exciting, thrilling evening here from the Critical Blast Caverns, where we talk with all the folks who are out there making comics happen in the world of crowdfunding. And tonight we have a special guest with us. We have with us Mr. Joshua Plack, who you have seen before when he did Eudaimonia. I say that just because I can now. And he's got a new book out, How to Die. Joshua, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, sir. Thank you for having me on.
Well, glad to do it. Did you have a good, exciting Batman day?
I just moved, actually. I just moved up here to Washington, so I've been so busy. It completely passed me by. I am so sorry.
I don't know how you celebrate Batman Day. I mean, I've got the shirt on. I've got the pants on. So that's the best I can do.
I mean, I have an Eagles jersey. We're kind of like the Batman of the NFL. Like, we're the scourge of the night.
And you both fly.
Yeah, there you go.
And look for prey. So that's perfect. So you got a certain type of comic that you do. It's not the superhero kind of thing. With Eudaimonia, it was a very it's heady. It's sort of poetic and educational, and I'm just curious what draws you to that sort of genre, if it's even a genre.
I would say that my style is to just try to do as many styles as I can. The book I'm about to have here, How to Die, is like basically the complete opposite. It's basically everything Eudaimonia wasn't. So my goal is to basically kind of dip my toes in as many different kind of waters as possible. This Eudaimonia came out of a love of history and art and poetry. How to Die is kind of preternatural horror. It's written in more of a traditional way. It is going to be a superhero, supervillain kind of a series. So I'm basically, Eudaimonia was kind of like an introduction. It was me trying to figure out everything that goes into publishing, creating books, and trying to put together as good of a product as I possibly can. And How to Die is just, kind of building on that. So kind of getting back into a little bit more traditional, definitely a lot darker this time around.
All right. I did notice that there was, the monster in the background here. As you can see it in the banner. I didn't know if that was psychological or what, because I knew we talked about how the title was inspired by an old poem pre-World War I. So I wasn't sure if that was sort of your setting or if that was just informing the title and the story that you were working with.
I would say, yeah, World War I is basically the language, the literary language that I kind of draw a lot from. So that was just kind of an inspiration for the title. No, it's really a more literal kind of almost preternatural evolutionary kind of horror for this.
All right, so that's like the second horror title I've come across in the past couple of weeks here. With first one being Graham Nolan's The Chenoo. What can you tell us about this particular horror? Is it just monster horror, slasher horror? I'm thinking more monster just from the images I've seen.
So there's a kind of lore that's built into the universe of the book. The idea is that evolution is kind of driven out of need. But in a world where man doesn't really have a lot of needs or things that he really strives for, it kind of throws out all of the rules of evolution. So instead of where, the strongest of us, develop skills, in this world, it's actually the lowest of us. The very worst of mankind are the ones that are able to develop these kind of supernatural abilities. And so what How to Die is basically, the meaning behind the title is basically, if you are an awful enough person, and by awful, I mean like the way you live, like whatever your weakness is, whether it's like apathy or pain, when you confront death, those kind of awful attributes to your life can trigger a kind of evolutionary process and save you. So this is the first story, and as first stories go, it's basically, taking your box of toys and just dumping them out and kind of getting everything out where you can at least find it. So this first book is a story of a protagonist and an antagonist. And the monster that you see on the cover is the Black Ice. He's kind of just born out of very excruciating pain. And he comes from a family in which they're hunters, in the sense that they hunt mankind. They hunt the very lowest of mankind. And that's where he was kind of raised to do that. And so when he meets his fate and he develops these powers, he kind of continues that tradition of hunting down like just the people that are just dangling from the lowest rungs of society, which leads him to our protagonist, who is just, kind of a schlub, a loser. He kind of works at a video store, and it basically sets up this clash in the end where the antagonist creates the protagonist.
Is this something that is generally known to the population of the world that you've created here? That, hey, the worse I am, the greater chance I have of developing this ability when I confront death? Or is this sort of a secret thing? Because it's a real incentive to be awful.
Yeah. This is kind of a dawn of a new age kind of a thing. So we're seeing this like right at its earliest development.
Gotcha. So is there anything that triggered this, or is that part of the story?
What do you mean?
Triggered this new era of having these things happen to people. I mean, did like some demon escape and now awful people are going to become powerful? Is it just, this particular position of the planet during the Kali Yuga or something?
So the scene in WALL-E where it's like that image of the future where everybody's just kind of strapped into chairs, with giant sodas, and they don't really need anything. It's basically that idea, but the opposite direction. Like, I don't see mankind as being somebody who would just kind of lay in a chair all day with nothing to do. Like, I think that mankind's evolutionary biology is a little bit more complex than that, and that they would seek out something. There's a quote on the page, basically, when man has no war, he will create it within himself. And so this is something that's totally organic, and we're seeing in kind of the next evolutionary soup, like from its very beginning.
Yeah, because we do have that thing in us, that competitive drive where we have to conquer something, and if we can't conquer each other, if there's no opportunity for that, then we'll create something to conquer. It's how we get art, really.
Yeah. So the strongest among us, the people that you would think would evolve, they are the ones that, because they have strength, they're able to go out and kind of find a little bit more meaning, whereas the very lowest would be the first to develop in this kind of new primordial soup of like just meat of like, kind of searching for meaning. So which is kind of continues the Eudaimonia, kind of like a theming thing, because that's a lot of what that book was about. Yeah.
That was, like I said, it's a very stop and make you think kind of thing. It's not your books are not popcorn comics where you just like take it in, slugfest, colorful capes, and that kind of thing. It's more than just slasher horror thing going on here too. There's reason behind stuff that soul searching kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm going to play the video here and get that going. I'm going to mute my mic when I do this. Apparently that's supposed to be a good thing to do. Wow. That's very metal.
I know I made it, but I love my own trailer.
No, it's cool. Trailers have become a very, very important part of crowdfunding lately. I keep seeing that, and I keep telling people about that. And a lot of people are really putting effort into the trailer, because I guess that's the first thing you're going to see on any crowdfunding page now.
Hi, Bap2.
Bap2 is here, and he signed up for the I'll say it here in a second, for the mailing list, because that's where you are at right now. It's on a sign up.
But it's launching on October 1st, so a couple weeks, and it's just going to wrap up 30 days, ending on Halloween night.
Oh, perfect. So you're not going to go for the extension?
You know, so Eudaimonia #1, I did this just a 60-day campaign, and the problem with that is it created a huge crater in the middle. You know what I mean? Where I would just go like an entire week without any buyers.
Sure.
#2, I did the 30-day campaign. It went way better, and I extended it for 30 days, and it was really for nothing. Like, I mean, I got like a couple more, but I didn't see any noticeable difference between that and just keeping in demand open. You know what I mean?
Right. So you're going to go 30 days and just in demand after that.
30 days and in demand.
That's a faster way to get people to the comic, and that's always going to be a crowd pleaser when you do that.
And for the mailing list, I'm doing discounted shipping and gold signatures instead of the only people on the mailing list get the gold signature editions.
Oh, okay. That's another thing I've been seeing is, the incentive to get on the mailing list, sort of like the secret perk.
Yeah.
Or the exclusive tier. So this is art from the book. Is the book close to being done or completely done at this point, and before you launch, or?
It is fully written. It is obviously the cover's done. It's about a third of the way done, so not as complete as I usually start a campaign with. And then there is a super secret alt variant cover in the works. But I'm doing just one variant cover.
Just one variant cover. Is it super secret because of, are we going to know the person who's drawing it, or?
I can't say anymore. I can tell you that it's going to be like really high quality. Like I'm really excited for it. But that's going to be unlocked in the middle of the campaign.
As a stretch goal, or?
I don't really. Maybe you have a different opinion. I'm really not a big fan of having stretch goals that like you're planning on doing it anyway, and everybody knows. I don't know why. It kind of rubs me the wrong way personally. You know what I mean? Because it's like I wouldn't buy a car from somebody who was keeping a secret from me. I don't know. You could have a different opinion.
But here like that, I get that. I'm okay with stretch goals if it's like, hey, if we get, if we make this much money, then everybody's going to get a sticker along with it, because you see that they're going to, up the value of what you get.
Yeah.
I did I always reference the Jim Balance Tarot Witch of the Black Rose Kickstarter they did, and they had a lot of stretch goals in there that I didn't even read the stretch goals. When I interviewed them, I said, I want the book. I paid for the book. I got the book, and when it came, I had a second book, a sticker, a keychain, a set of trading cards. I'm like, I was happy because, I got way more than I initially thought I paid for.
I got you.
But yeah, the whole, oh, we didn't tell you this. You could have done this if you'd have known about it. That's a little different. I get that.
Yeah. I mean, that could just be like my personal taste. I like to keep things as simple as possible. I'm about books and stories, and that's really it. This campaign, I'm going to be doing T-shirts because I do like T-shirts. I'm just not personally really into like, the cards and I don't want How to Die Pogs out there.
Yeah, well, I don't know if your monsters or if your antagonists and protagonists are of a kind where you would actually brand and merchandise them in the first place.
Hmm.
A lot of horror films and horror stories, they're one and done, and you don't unless you're going to do a franchise like a Friday the 13th or a Nightmare on Elm Street. In which case, I should ask how far you see HTD going and whether or not you plan to franchise some of the main characters.
I got you. The plan is going to be an annual, one issue a year, every year on. Just kind of like a fun Halloween thing. The plan right now is 4 issues and then a final issue with 4 different endings.
Ooh,
yeah. So I have the entire like overarching story kind of mapped out and everything. There's going to be the Black Ice. There's going to be the Gray Queen. And then 2 other characters I haven't come up with names for yet because I'm not really good at naming. But it's basically going to be, the final issue is going to have 4 different endings, 4 different, completely different outcomes. So not like choose your own adventure, but like I'm basically setting up this kind of cataclysm in the universe that could go one of a different ways, depending on, who is the victor, because whoever wins is effectively going to have the power to control the universe for the foreseeable future. And so people kind of have, you want to have the Gray Queen ending? Do you want to have the Black Ice ending? It'll be, something kind of interactive for fans if I pick up enough fans for the series.
that's kind of like when they did Clue as a movie.
Yeah.
And they had all the multiple endings and
whoa. Let's back up. We got to back up. They didn't just do Clue the movie. They did Clue the great, fantastic movie with the wonderful Tim Curry, the amazing Madeline Kahn. That has to be one of the best casts ever. Christopher Lloyd, sorry, you get me started on Clue.
Found one of your good ones, huh?
I think Madeline Kahn is one of the most underrated actresses ever.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not even a big fan of Young Frankenstein.
Well, now, Young Frankenstein is one of my favorites, but I think Young Frankenstein is one of those ones where it's better in my head remembering it because I remember all the good parts. But when I rewatch it, it's one of those ones where I'm like, okay, get through this part. Get to the next good part.
History of the World Part 1 is another one where it's just like, oh, yeah, this scene's not that funny.
Yeah. Well, Mel Brooks is like that. So what kind of a book? We don't have any information, obviously, because it's just the newsletter right now. We know what it's going to be about. But, looking forward, what are we funding here? Are we looking at like an 80-page, a 40-page, square bound, stapled?
Okay, so that's one thing I learned from Eudaimonia number 2. I was so excited to have square bound, and then once I got it, I was like, I don't like this at all. Like I'm sticking with staple bound for the foreseeable future. I just don't like the way it opens. I can't really explain it, but I've actually gotten some emails from people who are like, yeah, I'm kind of not as good as staple bound in my opinion. So first issue is going to be 30 pages. I'm sticking with the matte. I really like the matte for the cover. Super glossy interior. It's going to be a little bit cheaper than Eudaimonia as far as the price point because as you can see, the interior is going to be black and white. That kind of goes back to Eudaimonia and one. I'm trying to just do something completely different from Eudaimonia, where it's like, people who enjoyed Eudaimonia, the first things they pointed out to me was the use of color. For this, I just really enjoy. I think this is just a really good story for black and white. I don't know if you've ever read. You've read History of Violence?
Yes, that's one of the big books that they did for DC at one point, right?
Yeah. I wasn't a big fan of it, but the one thing that I really enjoyed about it was how it was just such a perfect fit for black and white. And like I'm not one of those hipsters that thinks everything should be, but I think for this world, black and white just works so well.
And this is going to be, judging from the sample art here, this can be solidly black and white. There's not going to be any like a spot color of like some people are doing black and white with a little bit of red.
No Sin City color thrown in, but the big moment at the end of the book will be in color, and I wish I could talk more about it, but I'm super excited for it. But
Oh,
it's just kind of this like huge reveal at the end of the book that will be like just an explosion of color.
Going the Wizard of Oz route with it.
Yeah, that's another good example. Yeah.
All right, well, that's going to be cool. Is that how are you going to handle the printing of that? Because I'm thinking that they have to say, okay, we're printing this in color. The colors just happen to be black until the very last page, which is a different process than if you're saying we're printing it in black solidly.
Yes, but if you're doing black and whites for the interior and color for the cover, the inside cover would fall under that. So if I print the last page of the book right on the inside cover, that can be in color.
That's a unique approach to it. I haven't seen that before. If I have, I've forgotten it, but I'm surprised more people don't do that actually, because it's usually used for like advertisement space. But with as
long as you give me credit, that's totally fine.
Yeah. With crowdfunding, it's not like you're selling ads to put in the book, so why not take advantage of as much of the real estate as possible to get the story out there?
Means you can basically get 2 color splash pages in your black and white book.
Very, very true. Do you have a goal in mind already as to what it's going to take to get this one funded?
So I have I've kind of developed a philosophy on printing and crowdfunding in that I have a story to tell and I want people to enjoy it. And if that means there is really no goal, I want readers. And I think if I can cultivate readers no matter what, and no matter how many, and make them happy, then that is a good step forward. And even if that means taking smaller steps forward, it's moving in the right direction. So however much I get, however many people buy the book, those people are going to get a book. And I've done Eudaimonia 2 did better than I even thought it possibly could. And I'm getting more books made by me the way I want them made into the hands of eager readers. And I can't really be disappointed in a number. I'm marching to the beat of my own drum. So, I don't have any goals or anybody to answer to, and whatever happens is going to happen.
All right. So you can set your Indiegogo goal at whatever number you want then, because it's going to fund no matter what. I don't even know what the minimum Indiegogo goal you can put out is. It's like, $5. If it makes 5, we're funded.
Yeah. I usually do 500 and it gets there pretty quickly.
Yeah. If you're going to fulfill it anyway, then the lower the goal you set, the better for the Indiegogo algorithm. Because as soon as you double that, if you set it for like $100 and you make 200, which will be like day one, you'll start showing up on the front page of Indiegogo as a recommendation because it's such a percentage of goal met.
I think Eudaimonia 2, I hit the top level of the front page like 4 times just because I kept getting,
Play the algorithm, play the math. So is this now your 3rd book?
Yep.
Okay. I just want to make sure I hadn't skipped over anything there. So you did Eudaimonia 1 and then 2, and now we're at How to Die. You said you want to do all kinds of different genres. Are there other stories that you're looking at branching out into with your crowdfunding?
I basically, so let's see here. So after this, I think I'm going to start on The People Versus, which is going to be a collection of I want to do a collection of short stories. Part of the reason why I think my writing works well for comics is that I have kind of a short attention span. And so I work well just keeping my stories as compact as possible. So I have like a whole series of short stories, already assembled. And I really like the idea. I think comics and graphic novels are just a gorgeous avenue to tell these little stories. So I have a series of short stories Some of them are in poetic form, like Eudaimonia. I really am excited about the idea of doing a collection of those in which each story is done with a different artist, and just trying to get as many artists involved. Hey, you want to work with me? You want to, 1 or 2 pages at a time, little short story, little bite-sized pieces.
Yeah.
And start working on that. I have another series I've kind of mapped out a little bit in my head. It's like a detective series set in Harlem Renaissance, Harlem, so like 1910s and 20s.
Oh, cool.
What did I call that? Coleman Carmichael, Harlem PI. Just because I'm a complete sucker for like British detective shows, and I've watched so many of them that I feel like I have like every beat of them and how they're supposed to be put together. I just kind of have that kind of motion in my head. I think that's something I'd like to play around in a little bit.
Do you have Sirius XM radio?
I do not.
Okay. I do, and I can't get rid of it because nobody would be able to listen to anything in the car if I didn't. But they have a classic radio station as part of their subscription that I've found. And I'm always tuning to that because you're always getting these Raymond Chandler suspense stories. The classic radio detective stories are great. If you want to just put the picture in your head, I was going to recommend you give it a couple of listens and see what you thought of that. But
yeah.
I'm trying to. I can't remember the last one I listened to by name because it was one I'd not. Well, Orson Welles narrated one of them, and it was something called The Black Museum, and that was the name of the show, and it had different episodes. And he'd like, I'm walking through the Black Museum, the section of Scotland Yard where we keep clues to murders that have taken place. Here's a raincoat, and then the name of the episode was The Raincoat, and it was just acted out from there. It's kind of cool to.
What I love about the British ones is that like half of them, the main point of the series is whatever job the detective has. Like they're not actual detectives. So you have like Father Brown, and he's a priest. You have Rosemary and Thyme, which is about 2 older women who are gardeners who solve murder mysteries. There's one where there's a magician who just gets involved and it's great.
We had one here in America that was literally called The Magician. Bill Bixby. That was pre-Hulk. And it was funny because it was like he would do magic tricks to escape the guys who were torturing him. I'm like, so you're telling me that you literally walk around with the cards loaded up your sleeve at all times? You have flash bombs ready to go at any moment. But
I love it.
Oh. In fact, we had another series. What was that? Deception? I think it only went 1 season and then it got canceled. But it was a more recent show. It was just like a couple of years ago. There was a detective helping the police. But yeah, that's a crazy kind of genre that I'm noticing more and more. I mean, things like Lucifer, where you have just somebody who's got a specialty and then they solve crimes.
It's cozy, you know what I mean? Like it's just you know exactly what's going to happen almost all of the time, and you can just kind of turn your brain off and wait for the conclusion to come and wait for everybody in the show to be like,
yeah. It's like, I knew it was going to be him because he's the last person we would have suspected of it being.
Yeah.
So do you have that story in mind already, how it's going to play out? Because I've thought about doing that before, and I'm like, well, how can you figure out, am I smart enough to fool everybody with a crime that I now have to tell everybody how it was done is my always greatest concern.
Yeah, I could see that. It's, what is it? I liked the first season of Sherlock, and then I thought it just turned, just fell apart. And the best way I heard it described is that Sherlock is Sherlock is a smart character written by somebody who is so stupid that intelligence is indistinguishable from magic. And so, talking about Stephen Moffat, but yeah, I could see how, yeah. I could see what you're saying about how, like, am I smart enough to write an intelligent character? That makes a lot of sense.
That's
And
what's scary.
I don't have an answer for that.
You almost have to commit the crime and then work backwards from there, covering it up.
No. I've given it a lot of thought. And it definitely involves working backward, like thinking backwards.
Well, you don't have to think backwards for how to die, because this is definitely more straightforward. This is the part of the cover right here, right? Because I'm seeing color in it now. So.
Yes.
And is this going to be the actual front title, or are you actually going to spell it out?
It's spelled out. You have it at the top of the video there.
Okay, I did see the video. So.
Oh no, I meant this very stream.
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah, I did. It's right there. It's that big red splash there, staring me in the face.
Yeah, I really like that. I like how it looks there with the splatter, because like it's delightfully tacky. You know what I mean? Like it's got a little bit of like cheesiness to it, but like not too much.
No, it's good though for monsters to get that splatter look to it.
It looks like a Netflix original.
Exactly. Is that something you've ever thought about with your comics? Once you have enough under your belt to say, okay, well, Eudaimonia was a book, and now it's out, and everybody who's bought it is going to buy it, has bought it. What more can I do with it?
I haven't really. I kind of have the attitude that like I want to tell my stories and I want to have my books, and if somebody wants to do something with it, great. I look at it as something that's just completely separate. If somebody were to see it and want to, option it and do something with it, cool. I don't need to. I'm not gonna, be. I'm not gonna be Alan Moore over it. I'm not gonna just freak out.
But you're being sort of more passive about it, letting them find you rather than you send it their way.
Yeah.
Because
I'm horrific at marketing, so.
Yeah, it's a hard nut to crack, because most writers for television and movies, they won't take anything in the mail. You don't have a personal inlet to somebody, then you will not get anything in their hands, because they're scared of getting sued, because if they write something similar and they didn't look at your thing.
Yeah, I mean, almost every comic book publisher is almost the same way. They want sample art and nothing concrete. At least that's what I find.
Yeah, I think that's how they do the artists, and then the writers, they go recruit themselves. They don't take writing samples anymore. I remember, when I used to go to conventions, and the comic book companies would show up at the conventions, as opposed to just the celebrity conventions that they are now.
Yeah,
thinking that, gosh, I love all these little editorial cubby holes where people go and show their portfolios and say, hey, I want to work in comics because I can draw. And the whole time I'm sitting there thinking, where do you go to talk to somebody to show them you can write, and what do you show them to do that? Because you can't just hand them pages of a script and somebody sit at a table and say, oh, this looks really good, because you've got to process it, you've got to read it, and that takes time. I don't think there's ever been anything like that other than the blind submission process, or as it is now, they find books that you've done and recruit you in as an author.
Yeah, I mean, I have a CV for publications, and I think that's about the only thing I can think of as far as like hard evidence that I can write. I have a couple awards, I've had, a couple dozen publications, but yeah, I wouldn't even know, like, what do you pitch them? Like, hey, here's my story idea. I have no idea.
So you do have this long pedigree of having written things and published things and won awards. And then you decided graphic novels was a new thing that you wanted to get into and collaborate with an artist to tell your stories.
Yeah, if you asked me like 5 years ago, like, oh, what do you think of self-publishing? I'd be like, I would say that like self-publishing sounds like the definition of failure.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I actually looked into what traditional publishing is like. You could make it in traditional publishing and still just be flat broke. Like it is huge machine of failure from like by design. And so once I actually saw what that was like, I was like, this does not seem like it's for me at all. I don't want to grind, and I don't want to grind and just get absolutely nowhere. And so that's just kind of where it's like it was like a gradual thing where I was like, I found an artist, we just started talking, started doing a couple pages at a time, and before I knew it, I was like, I could actually make something that I would want to read, and just kind of took off from there. And then once I started finding a little bit of success, it was like I realized that I had this tab on my screen of like different contests and different things you could submit to, and I realized I hadn't looked at it in about 6 months, and I was like, I don't really want to do that anymore. I'd rather just keep being a garage band of comics.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Self-publishing 30 years ago was just completely illegitimate form. It was, it was for sending in grandma's recipe collection, and so you could have it in a hardbound copy. And then, when iUniverse came out and anybody could turn in a script and it would just be turned into a book. Yeah. Doesn't mean it was selling. It just meant that there was a book.
There's actually those predatory businesses are actually still around. Like I got almost taken in by one where I sent them a script and they're like, we want to publish your book. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Send us a check for $600. I'm like, no. Yeah. And I'm now we're self-publishing. I'm not publishing what I write. I'm publishing other people's writings now. Yeah. With The Devil and it's like I could really put one of my own stories in here, and I guess writing the introduction to the book kind of sort of counts. And we pay to have it published. It's not, it's through Ingram Spark, so you're paying your setup fee and everything else. It's not like the $600 that the predatory companies would charge you. It's also not free as Kindle would charge you. But I don't know. I kind of like the Ingram Spark version over the KDP version because it just looks like a more quality product. I've done both, and I think with Ingram Spark, it's easier to purchase your ISBN as opposed to Kindle. It's cheaper to get it that way. That's another thing that I never really thought about talking with crowdfunded comic people is you have a barcode on your books, I'm assuming, of some kind. You have an ISBN number, or do you even bother with that for your graphic novels? I didn't for the first edition of the first book, but I did I'm doing it now. I don't really know why, but it's cheap, and I guess it makes it feel realer to me. I don't know. And I think I've also been told that it has something to do with whether or not a book is eligible for media mail. I don't know how true that is. I don't think anybody actually knows how media mail works. Like you get 1,000 different answers from anybody that you talk to. The people at the post office don't even know.
Oh, I know. And I've gone from one post office to a second post office and gotten different things because we mail out a lot of contest entry stuff because we'll give away DVDs. We've got a live stream tomorrow, open mic. We're going to give away Riverdale season 4 during it, and that counts as media mail because it's not bound printed matter, but it became magnetic media, and it started counting. And I remember every time I would mail something, they'd say, "Is there anything in here other than the book or the DVD?" I'm like, "No." I'm like, "No invoice, no notes." I'm like, "No." Because then it had to go first class. And then I had a guy tell me, he says, well, you can put like an insert in there and mail it something called media with first class insertion. So it was like this middle price. And I was like, oh, well, that's cool. Well, I put a note in there, said, thanks for entering. And he said, okay, we'll do it with that way. I went to the next post office, said, yeah, this is media with first class insertion. Like, well, what the heck are you talking about? There's no such thing as media with. So I'm like, okay, I just stick with media from now on. But
what I've always wanted to know is, do you do international?
Yeah, I have done international, and is it expensive?
Okay, so I heard something about how if you can do first class in an envelope if it's a book, and it's a little bit cheaper than if I just do Gemini mailers, like no matter what.
Yeah.
But it seems kind of risky to me to put a book in a padded envelope. You know what I mean? Especially if it's going overseas.
Sure.
And I looked it up, and you only save like $3. Like, do you really want to risk messing up somebody's book just to save $3 going international?
Exactly.
Because if it gets messed up, you got to pay for it all over again.
I've got a couple of books here that I still have to send overseas. This one's going to Australia, and it's going to cost me $27 to mail this book in a padded envelope. So I've got my, what is this, your customs declaration filled out. And I don't know how you guys do that when you do mass mailing of not self-published, crowdfunded comics, and you do ship overseas. I mean, does your software print out all the customs forms for you?
No. There's probably a better way to do it, but I'm literally packing up my books, walking to the post office with 10 of them in a backpack, and then out of those 10, maybe 2 will be international. So I'll just fill out the customs forms while they're doing the other ones. I probably should talk to somebody about like, hey, do you buy like a machine and just print out your labels at home? Like, should I be doing that? Because like, I probably am doing it in the least efficient way imaginable.
Yeah, because the customs forms, like they tape something to the thing and then they give you a copy and then they keep a copy, and I'm like, that would get really, really tedious, I would think, if you're shipping that much. I mean, I'm just shipping a couple of books, but
yeah,
with somebody who's running a 6-figure campaign, they're going to have dozens of these things to fill out. So
I would say the shipping process is 100% tedious, but it's also 100% satisfying to actually put this book, it's like your baby. You're sending off your baby to college. Like, I'm getting my book to somebody, I'm putting their address on it, and I don't know. It's one of the most satisfying things I could ever imagine doing.
I totally get that feeling. I mean, just mailing out our author copies to the authors, I'm like, walking with a big old stack of books and like, yes. And then, what's even more satisfying is when it arrives, and I'm sure you've seen the same thing, when they get their book and they take pictures and they care enough to post it on Twitter.
Yeah. I have a gallery.
Yeah. And it's proof of delivery to everybody else who, thinks about your next project. Says, oh, look, they got their books from this guy. He actually sends them. I'll remember that when I see him again. Maybe they'll remember it, but it's still positive to see it. But the media mail controversy, I think that had come up before with comics, it's the difference between comic books and graphic novels, and that difference is whether or not it's a periodical or not. Comic books have a date on them, so they get a certain kind of treatment as opposed to books. I don't know why it would matter to the mail people, because it's still bound printed material. But I guess I think there is a periodical rate that would be applied. I'll have to investigate that now. But
I thought it had something to do with ads. If it had ads, it couldn't be media mail.
That's it. Yeah, comic books have ads in them, and graphic novels don't. So it's not the date, the periodical function of it. So, and house ads don't count as ads. It's still all in-house stuff. So, don't tell them you're mailing a comic book, I guess, is the way to do it.
Yeah,
it's a book.
Yeah, because my books don't have ads in them.
But going through Bowker to get your ISBN, it's $80.
Mine was $19.99.
Really?
Yep.
I'd like to know where you go to get your ISBNs, because, did you buy a bulk of them, or?
No, I just got 2 of them. They were $19.99 each.
Okay.
I don't remember where, but I'll send you a link. And I know it's real because if I just type in my ISBN number into Google, the cover shows up.
Who does it say the publisher is?
I don't remember.
See, that's one of the things I have seen on these cheaper ISBNs is that, yes, you get an ISBN, but now it may not mean anything to you because you're going crowdfunding, you're self-selling directly here. But with us, we list on Amazon. And if we take the free ISBN or we get a cheaper ISBN from somebody, the cheap ones, they show up as the publisher of the book. They own the ISBN, even though you bought it at a lower rate. When we pay the $85 from Bowker, then Amazon says, oh, publisher is Critical Blast Publishing. So that's something to watch for if you ever, take the mass market route with something.
Yeah. I'll keep that in mind.
I think BookBaby was like selling stuff for a cheaper rate. Well, there's some people that would buy like a bulk of them. Like if you buy a big block of them, you can get them for like $10 a piece then. And then you can sell it for $19, but they're still the owner of the ISBN as far as Bowker is concerned. So it'll list as them. You'll see a lot of stuff on Kindle, for instance, where the publisher is going to be CreateSpace because a person just said, oh, yeah, well, I'm not going to pay for an ISBN. I don't need an ISBN. And now, of course, they don't look like they have a publishing company. They look like they self-publish through Kindle, which may not be the image you want to project.
Yeah.
But it is cool, though, that, your covers do show up. I'm assuming that's not your graphic novel covers, though, but the other stuff that you've published in the past.
Yeah.
All right. Not something we usually talk about in these discussions, the ISBNs. That's a whole new avenue for me to explore now. Not that I'm ever going to publish comics because not something I'm ever going to do. So
this is more of an instructional video.
Yeah, I could watch instructional videos all day on how to publish comics. And I'm like, yeah, it doesn't matter. My stick figures still look like stick figures. I'm not ever going to draw a comic. Now, this one's going to open on 1st of October. It's going to wrap up Halloween. Do you expect it to be in people's hands by the end of the year at the rate the art's being done?
I usually try to over deliver. Eudaimonia #1 and #2, I set the expected date at 3 months out. I think I was mailing out a month before I should have been. I'll probably try and keep that same way. Since it's a little bit of a shorter book, it won't, the production won't take as long. Plus it's mostly black and white. So I have a shorter production time, cheaper point of sale this time. And so I'm expecting, just to keep it a smooth running machine.
Awesome. So with that being in people's hands by just conservatively say December, probably be going out before then.
Campaign would end on Halloween, so it'd probably be in about January.
Okay. Do you have something planned on your calendar for launching in January or newslettering in January at the very least?
I probably will. I haven't decided what the next project is going to be yet. So I know, but I haven't narrowed down to those ones we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, you have options. You just haven't said that this is going to be the one we do.
I'd like to launch the detective series, but I'm thinking that I just can't wait on the other one. I really want to start talking to some different artists, see who wants to get involved with it.
How do you find your artists and just get these discussions? Do you just look for people posting stuff on Twitter or?
I've done Twitter. I've gotten some off of Reddit. There's a Reddit for comic collaborators. There's some on Instagram, but I haven't used it. Pretty much. Eudaimonia, that was on Reddit. This one is from somebody on Twitter.
I'm sure there's all kinds of places you can go to find somebody. I didn't know if there was like a hub that was like, this is the place you go to find your comic artists, like a Fiverr or something.
Yeah. Oh God, no. I used Fiverr once. It was awful.
I've used it for a couple of things, but I'm very, very picky when I sit down. I mean, we've had some tech work done from people on Fiverr. They've come through. The intro video that you saw at the beginning of our stream here was a Fiverr project. It was a voiceover. In fact, it was a Fiverr voiceover and a Fiverr video, and then I got them both, and then I combined them and timed it to where I wanted everything to happen. But for raw materials, I'll go to Fiverr. For finished product, nah, not so much.
Yeah, I tried to get a logo from there.
Our logo.
They gave me 3 different. Well, I was thinking about having like a proper like publishing. Like I was just going to call it Eudaimonia Comics. I got 3 logos, and it was like I don't even think they read my notes at all. I think they just did whatever they wanted.
Yeah, I mean, I looked around at a bunch of different people. I spent days looking at different people's art, and I found this one lady whose specialty was like she just did, circular badges for things. And I was like, okay, that's cool. Here's our idea and our colors, and our logo was. Now, of course, the thing about Fiverr is if you want to get something for $5, you're going to get what you pay for. But
yeah,
the real stuff on Fiverr is at least 30 Fiverr.
Yeah.
Like 160 Fiverr for a good tech analyst to come in and clean up the website. But it's like going to the dollar store and finding something for $4.99. It's like, wait a minute, it's not what you advertised. All right, well, Josh, it's been an interesting conversation. This is not what we usually talk about when we talk about comics, but you have a more unusual comic than a lot of other people have.
Yeah, I was gonna say I am nothing if not weird. So okay, let's see here. Okay, so I'm gonna bounce something off you, and I'm curious to know I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it. So I was a big Spider-Man guy.
Okay.
And I'm also a lover of like classics, older things. So Spider-Man's origin was written by 2 people growing up in the early parts of the century. And a lot of the theming in Spider-Man, especially early Spider-Man, is about what it means to be a teenager. Because teenager literally didn't exist for thousands upon thousands of years, right? There was no transitory period between childhood and adulthood. You were either a child or you were old enough to work or you were old enough to fight.
Yeah. Today you become
So
a man.
A lot of early Spider-Man is kind of grappling with that part of our identity, what it means to be between those 2 worlds, not quite being mature enough to go off into the world and responsibility. So this is a very tortured way of saying that this is one of the larger themes for How to Die, is people who are struggling to come out of arrested development. Like, what does it mean to be a young adult who's not able to carve out a piece of life for themselves when they're at an age where they should have by now? And so for the main character, Paul, in this story, that's kind of what he's grappling with. He's treading water. He's just going spectacularly nowhere. He has a job. He has an apartment. He screws. He eats Chinese food. But when the hull of his life gets pierced by unemployment, he is so rattled by going nowhere that rather than kind of correcting his course, this is a protagonist, by the way, he decides to kind of just steer directly into failure, with the belief that like anything would be better than treading water. But as he descends into various degrees of failure, he puts himself in the path of the black ice. And that kind of sets up this kind of just... And so I'm curious to know what you think of my analysis of Spider-Man and how tortured of a connection is that between what you're seeing in Spider-Man?
Well, I don't know. Spider-Man never really gave up. Whereas it sounds more like, somebody who's in a position like your protagonist is like, I'm at rock bottom, so I might as well dig, as opposed to try to climb.
Well, he has to hit bottom before he can climb. That would be where the protagonist story goes.
And when he does run afoul of the black ice, it's now he's looking to conquer that as opposed to sacrifice himself to it.
Yeah. So what I found really interesting. Okay, so what you have in this story is you have an antagonist doing terrible things for the right reasons, like what he believes are the right reasons. Because, a great antagonist is somebody that you can kind of see where they're coming from.
Oh, yeah. No one
yeah.
thinks he's a villain.
So, and we have a protagonist who's doing the right things for the wrong reasons. It's like, how do you get around the fact that he's trying to improve his life? Like, that's really like a selfish, reason to do anything. So him fighting this antagonist is really his way of like correcting his course, which is not traditionally what you think of when you think of a hero. You think of a hero being, or at least, the ideal of a hero being somebody who does good for, the sake of doing good.
Right. And he's going to do good for the sake of bettering himself.
At least for the sake of figuring out what it means to do good.
That would be
what that means in the trajectory of his life.
Because it's somebody who's not used to doing good, and
Yes.
now they're saying, what am I getting out of this? I'm doing good because I know it's the good thing to do, but I don't feel like doing this good thing. I'm not motivated by heroism or altruism or anything like that. I'm just doing it because I'm hoping I come out of it better.
And then you have the Gray Queen, which I can't say anything about because she's not even in this book.
Well, the next two characters have to at least be, like red and white or something like that, because you've established a pattern of color.
True.
So you said you hadn't had names for them yet. I'm like, well, you've got half a name for them somewhere in that box of 16.
That's true.
Crayons.
So you'd be the Black Ice, the Gray Queen, and the White Knight.
Yeah, and the Red King. There you go. Because, Black Ice, that's not a ruling kind of color noun match. But, knights and queens definitely makes one think that a king is in there somewhere, and they're going to rule the universe when it's all over with. So, you can't go with something like the green cigarette, too far off the wall.
Well, it's going to be hard in a black and white book, too.
Yeah.
So it's going to have to be colors that you would find in there, like granite or...
Okay, yeah, that is true.
Silver.
So you can't have red. You're not doing the spot color.
Yep.
You're doing the charcoal ember or something like that.
Oh, charcoal. That's there you go.
Yeah.
Steel.
Okay. I've made my contribution. So
yeah, you actually have. I didn't even notice the color pattern thing.
That's pattern matching is my thing. I apparently didn't pass it on to my son because I'm like, I tell him, when you're done eating, put your plate in the dishwasher, and I'll go over to the dishwasher. I'll pull out the bottom rack, and it's like, here's plate, 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 and then this diagonally thrown plate way up in the front of the thing. Like, do you not see a progression in the back here? Did this not naturally lend itself to tell you to put this here? No. Like, 12. Come on. And
learn pattern recognition.
I have to like stand over and say, turn it this way. No, they're facing each other. Turn it. Be as anal retentive as I am. Come on. Yeah. Quit this creative thinking stuff. All right. Well, we have reached the top of the hour, and we've gone all over the place with this. So I'm going to keep a watch on this. I'm going to get my name on the mailing list so I know when it launches, and we'll help promote this as best we can here. I want to see how this one goes out, because I've seen what Eudaimonia did. I want to see if the same crowd comes in for this, or if it's a bigger or an even more different crowd. And again, that's October 1st, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, Josh, we're going to end out the broadcast, and we appreciate you coming on and talking about your project. And when you launch again something else in January, February, we'll have you back.
Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Talk to you later. Good night.
Night.